Welcome to Inspiring Faith, and I want to welcome my wife. This is her first journey into our new podcast. Thanks for joining us, sweetheart.
Yeah.
And joining us all the way from near Houston, Texas, is Deanna Wilmore. She is the wife of a husband she's waiting for in outer space, Butch Wilmore. And you've been waiting how long? 9 months, is that right?
9 months, yes.
9 months.
So far.
What'd you say?
So far.
So far.
Yeah.
I think that's an astronaut's wife talking right there, no doubt about it. Well, Butch and Deanna have been married for over 30 years. He is the father of their two daughters. And Deanna, I just wanted to welcome you to this journey, and I hope you'll become a subscriber to Inspiring Courageous Faith, because you're the model of what it looks like to be a courageous follower of Jesus Christ.
Wow, thank you. Thank you for being here.
Well, Deanna, we wanted to ask you some questions while we've got you. And one of the things I've noticed about your husband on other interviews and just knowing him personally is he's a really strong person. Am I right?
Oh, yes.
That's what I thought. And it takes a strong person to do some of the things he's done in his life as a Navy test pilot and as an astronaut too. And I would imagine that you are opposite of your husband, Butch, just like Dennis and I are opposites. And so that presents challenges for you as a wife. And I would expect that has helped you develop courageous faith, as he's been a test pilot and now an astronaut.
Absolutely, yes,
Yeah.
it has.
What's helped you most to maintain your faith in your marriage and in all the stress that you've had to go through with what he's chosen as his career?
You know, I think just focusing on the Lord and my relationship with Him, and keeping in prayer, and relying, of course, on the Lord, on my church, to help strengthen me in all that I see and deal with, and just really, knowing that Barry is strong in his faith, and that he and I can talk about things and really just discuss and bond over all the goings on.
Yeah. Well, what was your response when you found out in June that they weren't coming back in the scheduled time that you thought he was going to be up there?
Yeah.
Were you surprised?
Okay with it.
You were okay with it?
I was okay with it because there were a lot of issues before he was flying this, because it was a test flight. It had never been flown, and it was the first spacecraft that Boeing had ever built. So, it was a learning process and many, many issues. And so it was dealing with those for years. And then when it came down to it and they had the flight, it was reassuring to me that he was on the station. And even if that meant he couldn't come back immediately, I felt good about him being on the station because it was safe. And so I was okay with it, as long as, they didn't feel like it was perfectly safe for them to come back down on it. I was good with him being there, as long as it took, because I'd rather him come back safely than, be questionable and come back on the Starliner.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. Yeah, and I bet there were multiple times in the last 9 months when you thought he might be coming back, and then you found out he wasn't coming back. I mean, it didn't just happen once. That's happened multiple times, right?
True. Yes. Yes. And, with that, I just take one day at a time and know that the Lord is in control, and it is His timing and not ours. So that really helped to know that the Lord will, bring him back on His timing and not our timing. So I tried to focus on that and know that, all of this was for the Lord's glory and our good. That's what our main focus was.
Yeah.
Well, what was your daughter's reaction in the midst of these stop, go, come back, not come back, wait, more waiting?
It was more difficult for them because they were not part of the Navy life. So they never had to deal
Ah,
with deployments or any of that. They were born after, we came here to Houston. So they never experienced it. So it was more difficult for them with just timing, but more difficult for Logan because he was missing her senior year. Darren missed him, but she was away at college. He did miss the summer with her, so she had been looking forward to being with him that summer, last summer. But it was more difficult. But then again, we stressed it's all the Lord's timing, and He is in control of it all. And that's where we have to put our faith and trust in Christ.
when I've thought of you guys, I've thought about James chapter 1, the first few verses of that chapter. And the Apostle James writes this: Count it all joy, my brothers and sisters, when you meet trials of various kinds. For you know that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness. And let steadfastness have its full effect, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing. And as you were talking about your daughters, I thought, it's true. They've not had 30 years in the Navy like you have. And their faith hasn't been tested multiple times. But this is a good one for them, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yes, it is. Very good.
And you've used it to teach them, I hope, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
Great. So as you've had to wait, you've had multiple ways to contact your husband. Why don't you share with all of us other terrestrials here, how you keep a relationship alive with an astronaut, not anchored, but floating in outer space, so to speak.
Well, fortunately, he can call us anytime that they're within a span that he can call. And so he can call several times a day. Now, granted, some of the phone calls are short because they have a turnover, handover, and that's where it goes from one satellite to another. So they'll drop a call. But he can call us, and sometimes it can be, for 5 minutes. Sometimes it can be for 25 minutes or longer. And also NASA connects us with a link on the weekends that they monitor, so we can actually go in on that link with our computers, and we can talk to them on that. And those are usually larger spans of time, and those can even go up to an hour. So we do that once on a weekend. All of us meet together on the computer, and we'll talk and can see each other. And then throughout the week, it's just Barry calling us, and he just sends us a link, and we click on it, and it's sort of like FaceTime. It's called Doxy, but it's like FaceTime.
Right.
It's amazing that you can actually do that, right? I mean, we've gotten a couple of phone calls from Butch ourselves, and it's just hard to even believe you're having a conversation with someone who's that far away, and it can be that clear. So
Yeah.
you've probably gotten very used to it, but every time we've talked to him, it's just been almost shocking that it works.
Yes, it is. It is very surprising.
It's hard to solve a
Absolutely.
problem in 20 minutes, though, isn't it? Some problems just take 20 minutes to describe, right?
That's true.
What would you say, Deanna, is over the years how long has he been an astronaut? How many years?
Oh my goodness. We came in 2000.
Okay.
So 25
25
this
years.
summer.
Yeah. So what would you say over 25 years is the most difficult thing about being the wife of an astronaut? Because not many of us personally know someone who's an astronaut. Probably listeners don't. And I just have wondered, what would that be like? Is there one thing that stands out to you that's been the hardest?
I would think it's the travel. If you are scheduled for a mission, like when Barry did the mission with the Russians on the Soyuz, he did a lot of traveling. So he was gone for almost 3 years, just back and forth.
Wow.
Now they do training here, but they do a lot of training in Russia and in Japan. And so there's a whole lot of travel with them being away. So that would probably be one of the main obstacles, I would say, that people deals with, but then it's not easy for them. I will say, being a Navy wife, I was used to that, because for the Navy, you have a 6-month deployment. But before you ever go on that 6-month deployment, you have over a year or two of workups to get ready for that deployment. So you are used to them being gone a lot, your spouse being gone a great deal. But for the astronaut, I would say it's the same. That time that time being gone, and again the girls having to get used to that, not dad not being around.
Right.
So that's probably the biggest one I've.
That's really interesting, because I didn't realize he had to do that much travel in preparation. But that makes perfect sense. Interesting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the opposite of what would be something that's really hard or difficult about being an astronaut's wife, what would you say is something that's really special and unique that you've enjoyed and that's been a real plus to your life and to your marriage?
It has opened the doors to meet some people I wouldn't have met, like Dennis and Barbara Rainey. And let's see, we got to meet George Bush Sr.
Oh, yeah.
We met him when he and his wife, when they came to an astronaut reunion. So that was
that's
neat.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So it has opened some of those doors that you get to meet some special people that you hadn't had that opportunity had he not been an astronaut.
Yeah.
Well, I hope if you get a chance to meet Trump, if you don't whisper in his ear, someone else does. I think Butch deserves a little overtime pay.
Or some kind of a medal or some kind of bonus.
You mean more than the $5 a day that he's getting?
Yes.
Oh, is that what they pay you for being in outer space? Is that the per diem? Oh, that's a killer. Yeah. Unbelievable. No doubt about it. Well, we're laughing about it, but waiting is hard. Whether you're in a doctor's office waiting impatiently for the doctor to show up, or in line for TSA, wanting to get on an airplane. Sometimes waiting is really on the edge of things, like a medical test. And you wonder if things are going to be okay. That's where you are. It's really hard to do. What would you say is the number one thing you have learned about waiting this time for 9 months? Because I know you've waited at other points, but is there something that stands out as you've waited this time?
It's just taking one day at a time, and just knowing that, we make plans, but the Lord, establishes our steps, right? So it's just really knowing it's the Lord's timing and focusing on that one day at a time and letting Him establish our steps.
So I've been looking forward to asking you this. Did you have to wait on Butch to propose to you?
No, we never talked about it. We never talked about it at all. It wasn't even really a thought, because we were just dating, and we were both in our 30s, so dating was just common. So we never talked about it. And as time went, I thought, oh, he'll probably, because he was coming out of shore duty and going to sea duty. So I thought, oh, he'll probably want to date long distance. And then he popped the question out of the blue. We had never even spoke of it. So.
Oh, really? Were you shocked?
Oh, shocked. Yes. Super shocked. Yes.
How long before you got married? Did you have to wait then?
We were only engaged for 6 months and got married because he was heading to shore duty.
Well, we were only engaged for 6 weeks.
Yeah, so we beat you.
We're not that fast.
Well, you're a patient person, I can tell. And I ran across this quote and I thought of you. Patience is when you're supposed to get mad, but you choose to understand. That's real maturity right there. Things have gone wrong, and yet you choose to understand what's going on, because it may be beyond another's ability to change it.
Mm-hmm. Correct. Yes. Oh yeah. So true with the astronauts. So true with military members. It's absolutely.
Yeah.
It's so vital.
So I have a question, Deanne. One of the things that I've admired, Dennis and I both have admired so much about Butch, is the different things he's done in his life, in his job as a Navy pilot and as an astronaut. But that to us who don't really have firsthand knowledge of what he does, but to us they just seem so dangerous. His landing a plane on an aircraft carrier and all the missions he flew, and being a test pilot on a fighter jet. I mean, that just is beyond something that we're normally familiar with. And so when I hear that, I just think, that sounds so scary. And I think about you, and I think, how does she handle the dangerous side of her husband's job? So I wondered if you could tell us, how do you, because it's a little bit different than waiting, because there is a danger element in what he has done for all of these years in his career, that probably presents a different kind of a challenge than waiting does. And I just wondered if you could tell us how you handle that part of your marriage.
Just trusting in the Lord and just believing on him, knowing that he's in control of everything. He's sovereign and he is in control. Mm-hmm. And there's no reason to worry and fret and try to change things, because I can't change anything because he has it. He's in control. He has all power, and just really leaning on that. Yeah. Trusting him with all my heart. That doesn't always mean things will turn out right. Right. Because I will say, before this launch, I thought, well, this is so dangerous. And I thought, this could be it. This could be the Lord's going to take him. And there was dread there for the launch. And I just thought, wow, yes, the Lord could take him.
Did that affect how you said goodbye that time?
I'm sorry?
Did that affect how you said goodbye that time?
Oh, it was emotional for sure, because, I did think it could be the last time I saw him. Hmm.
Yeah.
And it was, I tried to stay very strong and stuff for the girls. I didn't want them worrying or anything, but it was just more dread with that launch. And I totally trusted the Lord. I knew he was in control, but I also knew the Lord could take him, mm-hmm. that it was his time, because it was so dangerous. But I just knew the Lord, if that was his time, then, he would give me the strength to get through it, give the girls strength to get through it. Well, and I tell you, when I heard what happened when he was trying to dock to the station, oh my goodness. I don't know if they'll make a book of it. I know he wrote a book, and there will be some of that in there. But oh my goodness, it was just, the Lord's grace was amazing, and all the prayers that were going up with friends and family, and oh my goodness, I think that's what really saved them, because it was so dangerous, because they lost all control. He had to hold that capsule steady from spinning off into space. And, he had no thrusters, couldn't go forward, couldn't go backward, could not. But all of his training in the Navy, all of his training with NASA for this mission, and just by God's grace alone, I tell you, amazing.
So the docking was really...
made it to the station.
Wow.
The docking was that dangerous that time then.
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was like Apollo 13 stuff.
Wow.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yes, it was.
Wow.
Well, before we're done here, I don't want you to do it right now. I want you to tell them how they're coming home, because you shared that before we came on
Yeah, she
the
needs to share
podcast here.
that.
I want
Yeah.
to make sure we get that. But
Okay.
I interviewed Bob Lapine, and he was the co-host of Family Life Today, interviewed you and Butch when you were, I think it was Star City, Russia.
Yes.
Is that
Star
right?
Oh,
City.
that's right.
That's
Yeah.
Yeah.
right.
Uh-huh.
And you were getting ready to get on top of a Soyuz.
Well, he was.
Yeah, or he was.
Yeah.
That's right. Excuse
Not
me.
me.
Not
You,
you.
yeah.
But he was about to take his seat on this thing and head on to outer space. And that always amazed me that you guys were so calm and collected. And it's interesting to hear you talk about what was really the basis of that. And it reminds me of a preacher from Memphis who told a young man who was in a tragic plane crash that took the lives of four of his buddies. And he said this: either he is or he ain't. No in betweens. Meaning God either is in control or he ain't in control. And so it's interesting how much our faith does go back to God is a sovereign God, and he is in charge. Whether people want to believe it or not, he is sometimes behind the scenes, sometimes very evident, working his will and his way.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes.
And I really appreciate you sharing that about being, having some anxiety and being unsure. You knew that it was dangerous, and you knew that God could take him home, and yet you were feeling both emotions. You were feeling trust in the Lord, but you were feeling some dread and some anxiety. And I think there are times in our lives when those things can coexist. We can be trusting God, but we can still have the emotions of fear and dread about something that we know could go wrong. And I think sometimes we read the Bible and it says, I will not fear, or I will not be afraid, or I will not be shaken. And in our hearts, we may not be, but I think sometimes in our emotions, we still are, and that's okay. And I think God knows that. And I just appreciate you sharing that, because I think that alone will encourage a lot of listeners. It encourages me to know that you weren't just perfectly trusting when he was about to take off on a rocket that you thought was dangerous. So I think that's helpful for us to understand that our faith is developed even in times when we are afraid, and God is still giving us peace, that he's in control. I think that's
Oh, yeah.
significant. Yeah.
Yes.
Someone has said, there can be no courage where there is no fear.
True.
Courage is not the absence of fear. It's
That's right.
choosing to do something, do your duty in the face of fear, despite the fear. And you've modeled that in this situation. Have you dealt with other fears related to him coming back? We're talking to you now approximately 3 or 4 days before he scorches his way back through the atmosphere, and then next week lands in the ocean with on a parachute to the capsule. Have you got fears as this is getting ready to happen?
Yes. You know, space travel is not easy, and it's dangerous, and I know they make it sort of look easy most of the time. But yeah, of course, because that capsule could have just as many problems coming back. And, you know, you fear it. You can't help it, that, you know, you won't rest easy until his feet are on the ground.
On the ground.
Yes, but absolutely.
I'm sure this is true of you, but I've got a Psalter. It's not on my lap, but it's just a few feet away, and it's the Psalms. The psalmist was very honest with God about what he was experiencing, and just casting his fears, his anxiety, his worry on God. God can take it. He can handle it. He made us. He understands our weaknesses, and He's looking out for us. And he does want, the bottom line is, he wants us to come to him. And so to that person right now who may not be facing having their husband burn their way through the atmosphere to land in the ocean, who's facing something that's beyond their imagination, they can trust him, can't they?
Oh, yes. Yes, he is sovereign and he has control over everything. And that, yes, just trust him. Know that it will all work for his glory and our good. So, yes, absolutely.
There's a quote we found on the web when I was searching your name. I was trying to find out more about where you went to high school, college, and some of your professional background. And there was this quote. I want to read it because I put it here. It says, Butch just takes it that the Lord is in control. And since he is in control, he's content with where he is. Mm-hmm. And I've now talked to Butch twice since he's been in outer space this time. And that's the message of his life. Mm-hmm. He's content, and it's not phony. And I'm sure that rubs off on you and the girls, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it does, yes. If we thought he was just miserable, that would make us miserable. But yes, it's so comforting and reassuring that he knows the Lord has it and that he's perfectly content until the Lord brings him home. This home.
So I was thinking, yeah, that's exactly right. So I was thinking of you two and the contrast between him being up there and you being down here. And I know some of what he does and some of what you do. And I thought, here's Butch exercising 2.5 hours a day to keep his bone density healthy. So when he comes back, he won't crumble when you hug him. There's also the spacewalks. He's now been on a spacewalk. And how many has he been on now total?
Oh, goodness. 5?
I'm hearing somebody here in the studio whisper 5. So I think you're on it. You got it right.
Yeah, because one on this mission and then 4 on the last.
Right. Well, here's him doing these experiments, doing his work, and you and the girls have commented on this. He loves it. He loves flying. He loves going into outer space. And meanwhile, life just keeps coming at you. And I tried to get a hold of you a couple of months ago, and I'm not sure I'm going to get this right, but I was told that you were facing car repairs. Either a refrigerator or a dryer went out. Do you remember which one it was?
Dryer
went out. And, here you are by yourself doing that. And yet I have to ask you, what's been the toughest part of the last 9 months?
My mom was a single mom raising 5 girls. And so I saw her do everything. And, and I can even think back when I was a child and watching her do everything and not even chipping in to help. So I really didn't feel like it was too difficult because I did have, Logan here all the time to help. And we did do a lot of things. We had a roof replaced and we had a lot of things. They always say in the Navy, they always said, everything that can go wrong will go wrong once your spouse leaves.
Oh,
and
I'll bet.
It's because you do have all that coming at you, but you just do it. And I watched my mom do it for years, and so it was okay.
But you have a magic wild card.
Yeah.
His name is Jack. Tell him who Jack is.
Jack is Barry's brother, his older brother, older by a year.
Yeah. And he's helping you while Butch is out there having fun in outer space, right?
Yes. He and Barry's dad, they came and they, did some things around here, yard work and different things that needed to be done. They helped out, which was great. They came for Logan's 17th birthday, so that was really nice. And to watch her play some volleyball.
That's good.
Yeah.
Well, I just wanted to give a shout out. I didn't know his dad also came, but I wanted to give a shout out to Jack because he's a great big brother.
Oh, yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
and I know Butch is proud of him just as he is of Butch.
Hmm.
I've always said, Deanna, that faith is like a muscle. As you exercise it and as you put weight against it, I know it's hard to believe, but I'm actually doing some weightlifting, doing some weight training personally,
Yes.
and he's teaching me that it takes a long time to grow muscle.
Mm.
And faith is like a muscle.
Yeah.
It has to have tension against it. And in order for it to grow, it has to absorb that tension and work against it. That's why he's working out for 2.5 hours every day. So he doesn't lose muscle mass and bone density. So
That's right.
anyway, in spite of all that, though, we're operating in a body that has emotions. And you have to look back on these 9 months and consider this a whopper of a roller coaster ride. Is that true?
That is true. Yes, absolutely.
What's been the low point? Has there been one?
You know, the lowest point had to be when they were docking, trying to dock. That was the lowest point. That was definitely difficult. So that had to be it. Yeah, I'd say that was it.
Yeah. So did you know when they were trying to dock what was going on, or did you find out all that after the fact?
You knew something was wrong because it was taking so long.
Oh, okay.
And it was held.
Yeah.
So you knew something was going on. But then later, when Barry filled me in, and then I talked with a guy at NASA that gave me a lot of details of it, that's where I was like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
You know, that was our low
Wow.
point, saying how close they came. But God's grace.
Wow. That's amazing. So you had a little fear after the fact instead of in the middle of it, huh? Yeah.
Yes.
Realizing what it
Absolutely.
could have been. Well,
Yes.
as you're anticipating his return and the girls are anticipating his return, do you have some special things planned and lined up that you're going to do with him and for him and as a family?
Well, he has to go in every day for testing, and he's not allowed to drive for 2 weeks. So they actually come and pick him up and take him in for all the tests and things that they do. So there's not too much, that you do, but we just want to be together as a family. So
I'll
we're
bet.
going to, from the first night, we'll probably stay at crew quarters. They allow families to stay as well. So crew quarters, they're at Johnson Space Center. And so we'll stay at crew quarters the first night, just in case he's sick or, needs some help from the flight docs, because they're there as well. And then we'll just come home, and we just plan to be together. He'll go in during the day, and when he comes home, we'll just eat together, just low key, and it's just us.
And he won't be able to float and do his
No.
he's going to be anchored to a chair. I wish he was here to ask him how gravity hits him for the first time when he does come home. Is it hard for him to walk?
It wasn't hard for him to really walk last time. When he came back on the Soyuz, he was dehydrated because they didn't allow them to have water. And so he was dehydrated from that. And that made him ill, not having that. But he recovered pretty quickly. And he said it took a while to get a step back when he was running. But since then, he's given up running. He gets his cardio other ways. But he was pretty quick. And that was 6 months, but it was also 10 years ago. So he's 10 years older.
He's 63 now, isn't he?
Oh, 62. He'll get you.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
I apologize, Butch, when you watch this, if you do. So I was so shocked to hear the process of how Elon Musk is going to fly Butch home and how long it takes from the time he leaves the space station to ultimately landing down in the ocean. And I want you to share that because that was fascinating to me.
Well, when they undock, which we hope will be Wednesday morning, That is, if they launch Crew 10 on Friday, they'll undock Wednesday morning, and then they have to be in space for 33 or more hours before they can come back into the atmosphere.
Do you know why
And
that is?
they said it's to get just on the right path so they can land exactly where they need to land.
Interesting.
So, yeah, so they orbit in space for 33 plus hours.
And you said that's different than what he's had to do before, correct?
Yes, before they came back fairly quickly, but not this time. And I don't know if that's normal for a SpaceX Dragon, since this is our first time. I don't know.
Wow.
Well, hopefully the Dragon has some chilled water for Butch.
Yeah,
Oh yes, he's already said he gets his water.
good.
And he even made them or got them to change that for the Soyuz, because they were sitting in the Soyuz for hours before they undocked.
Wow.
So it was easy to become dehydrated. So
Oh,
they changed that after
Yeah,
that.
no
They
doubt about
let
it.
them have water. They were afraid water would get into the system and could, blow out an electrical something. So, yeah.
From the other missions that he's been on, whether it was as a Navy pilot or as an astronaut, what's one of the most memorable experiences with him as he comes home? Just something that stands out to you, your interaction as a family, or something that just was different that stands out about one mission over another.
Yeah, and I'm going to add to it that he flew combat missions. Wasn't it like 22 combat missions over enemy territory?
Yeah, I think, 20 or
Yeah.
I think right around there, yeah.
So there's been other drama in your lives and his life than just coming back from outer space. And I don't want to make that
Yeah,
just coming back from outer space. But, he's flown in enemy territory trying to take him out.
Mm-hmm.
Is there one that stands out? Back to Barbara's question?
Well, I will tell you, when he was in Desert Storm, I didn't know him because that was before we met.
Ah.
He was in his 20s then. And yeah. And so I did not have to do Desert Storm. So, and I know the stories now of Desert Storm, so I'm sort of glad I didn't know about those back then. But it was always good when they came back from deployment. Very patriotic. I loved it. All the spouses out there and the families. And it was such a great, wonderful, huge reunion. And those were always such a blessing. Just very emotional, very moving. Coming back as an astronaut, it is definitely more low key.
Huh.
And the shuttle, they did, there were more people around at that point, and you got to be there when the shuttle landed, and that was very special because you got to be right there. Now how they do it, we stay here and then they fly them in after they get them off of the Dragon. They'll of course put them on a boat, on a helicopter, get them in a plane, and then bring them home. And they said it usually takes, if they land in the Gulf, they said it usually takes about 6 hours to get them home from that.
Wow.
But that is a little bit more subdued because they come in and, less people are there. But we get to be there, thankfully. They do allow us to be there, and they allow us to hug them, so that's good.
Oh, that is good.
Yeah, no doubt
all
about
very
it.
special.
Well, you may say it's going to be low key.
It's going to be a little what?
It's not going to be low key this time.
Oh, that's what they said. It could be,
I think
more
there's-
media. Yes, that is what they say. Now,
I think there's a lot. I think there's a lot of emotion around you and your family, Sonny and her family, and just this whole deal of your courage, your service, what you've done on behalf of the country. Yeah, it's a powerful moment.
Well, and so many more people are watching and paying attention because it's been in the news so much. I mean, I jumped in my car for 5 minutes yesterday and the radio was on and they were talking about it. I mean, it's so it's such a topic of conversation across the country and across the nation that I think there will be something unique about this one because everybody wants to see, everybody's waiting for them to come home. It's not just you all and people connected directly with the space program, but I think the whole country is paying attention and is eager for them to come back too. Yeah.
Yeah. And we were having some work done at our house, and an electrician was there. He said, "What are you doing today?" I said, "Well, I'm talking to astronaut Butch Wilmore's wife. He's coming back in a couple of days." "Oh yeah, I know about that. My wife would love to hear what she has to say." So I think it's a shared glory that you and
Yeah, I
Butch
think so too.
and the girls have with him. And anyway, what I want to do is I want to turn to our audience and just say to the audience, I want to encourage you to pray for Butch, Sonny,
I agree.
for their safe arrival. Uneventful, okay? Maybe a little longer than normal, but uneventful. And then I want you to pray for Darren and Logan and how they process this as young ladies. And I don't know about Sonny. Does she have a family that'll be there?
She has a husband.
Okay. Pray for him. And yeah, I'd like to do that right now. And I'd like our viewers to join us in doing that. And then I've got something I'd like to ask them to do. Father, thank you for heroes of the faith. And I know just how Deanna feels about herself. She didn't feel like she had anything to say. And I'm like, wow, you have a lot to say to a lot of people. And I thank you for her faith in following her husband and being a great wife and mom and filling the gaps while he's been gone. And I pray you'll bless her, grant her favor, and watch over her as Butch comes back. And again, I pray for those girls that you would guard their hearts from fear, anxiety, from worrying about their dad. And I had to laugh when I heard that one of their friends called Butch Astro Dad. Well, that may be true. He may have a lot of platform because of what he's done. And I do pray, Father, I pray that there's some loose change that is shaken free at NASA to give Butch a little overtime pay, and Sonny too, for their extra hours where they've done service. And I just want to thank you for Deanna doing this with us and for sharing her life with our viewers and listeners. Thank you, Father. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Thank you.
And I want to say thanks to the listeners, and I want you to go at that little button at the bottom and hit subscribe and share and comment and like, because that's how podcasts like this grow. And we've got a few more in the can that we're going to be sharing going forward. They're not all going to be nearly as crisp as this one in terms of being brand new. We had to work to get this out in time before Butch made it back. So we'll see if we do it. Thank you again, Deanna. We love you and appreciate you.
Thanks, Deanna.
Thank you all. Love you guys.
All
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Go to therainey's.org/podcast for more inspiring, courageous faith content.